The Cannabis Show is for information only. You should always consult with a qualified and licensed physician or other medical care provider. Welcome to The Cannabis Show Best Of, Part 2. Here's a clip from our very own Dr. Stephanie Mason.
Hi, and welcome to the Cannabis Show. I'm Chris, and today we have a doctor in the house, Dr. Stephanie Mason. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Now, you've been with Natural Health Services pretty much from the get-go, but tell us, what exactly is your role with Natural Health Services?
I am the medical director of Natural Health Services, which means that I oversee the clinical staff and make sure that we're doing everything we can to deliver compassionate, competent care.
Oh, that's excellent. Now, What's your background, Dr. Mason?
I'm a physician, and I was a psychiatrist for 30 years. And I decided to do a shift in my career at a certain point when I became a bit disillusioned with Big Pharma and some of the ways that people were being managed medically. I think we had to sweep with a broader brush.
And so why was it medicinal cannabis then? You just knew, or you had an inkling, or?
It was a very strange series of coincidences. I have a big interest in addiction, and the problem that I ran into with that was we got no traction in terms of funding or getting help to sort of build a facility for people that struggled. And shortly after that sort of fell apart, I met Steve, our business partner, and he was interested in getting a clinic up and running, and I thought, why not? So that was in May 2015, and since then it has shown me the way, I guess, because we've been able to do harm reduction for people with substance use problems, but it's so much bigger than that. And sorry.
No, it's cool. So where you've been, from 2015 and where we are now in 2017, what would you say is like the biggest challenge from a doctor's standpoint when it comes to medicinal cannabis?
I think the biggest challenge is the pushback from other physicians, the government, the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and the lack of willingness to learn. That's been by far the greatest frustration for me.
So I guess it's still a fight out there then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And why do you think there is a backlash? Are people just being naive, or?
Well, I can tell you that 3 years ago I would have probably been in the other camp because I didn't know enough about medical marijuana to be sort of fair about it. And I wouldn't fill medical marijuana prescriptions for my patients. But the more I learned, the more I realized that the medications that I had been prescribing for 30 years were causing harm. And so it was time for me to take a second look at what I was doing.
Here's a clip from Natural Health Services Medical Director, Dr. Kimins.
Hello there, my name is Chris, and today we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Kimins. How's it going today?
I'm great, thank you.
Excellent. Dr. Kimins is the medical director of Suniva, who's the parent company of Natural Health Services. So, Dr. Kimins, I've spoken to you before, and you have some really cool background in the world of cannabis and stuff, but why don't we just start from the beginning and let us know about your background with cannabis?
Sure, absolutely. My background with cannabis really starts with the culture of cannabis in British Columbia. I grew up in coastal British Columbia where cannabis was essentially decriminalized for most of my life. So I knew lawyers, doctors, judges, police officers, firefighters who all used cannabis either recreationally or medicinally. They were using it in cookies or edibles they cooked themselves for aches and pains and headaches. So that was the culture I grew up in. In terms of my formal medical education, I had essentially no cannabis education because it was not being taught in medical schools. And in fact, to this day, is still not being taught in medical school.
Now, is that going to change, you find, like in the future, or is it hard to say right now?
I think so. Yeah. I've been giving lectures across Canada, and I always ask the audience a question. I say, who in the audience among the healthcare practitioners has received any formal education regarding medical cannabis or the endocannabinoid system? And until recently, I've had no show of hands, but just slowly people are starting to raise their hands. So I'm optimistic that with effort and with time, we'll have more doctors receiving education in this area.
Now, I know when we had our conversation before, you were actually saying that patients were actually teaching you about the cannabis as well.
Absolutely. I practiced surgery in Anchorage, Alaska for more than 10 years. During that time, cannabis was recreationally legalized in Alaska. So my patients were telling me that when they were using cannabis, they required less of the opiate pain prescriptions. And I started to take note of that. And in fact, I was starting to encourage my patients who were cannabis users to use it actively in the post-op period. And I had patients actually returning Percocet and Vicodin prescriptions to me, which was unheard of after the painful surgeries that I was performing. And I began to document this and write about this, and this was really, my patients teaching me about this was really my entry into medical cannabis as a formal specialty.
Stay tuned for a clip from our interview with the Calgary Police Service.
Welcome to the Cannabis Show. I'm Trevor Howell with Natural Health Services, and joining us today is Constable Travis Robertson with the Calgary Police Services Drug and Alcohol Recognition Unit, or Alcohol and Drug Recognition Unit. Welcome to the show. I
Thank you for having me.
You taking time to be with us.
Absolutely.
So we're going to focus largely, because of your role within the Calgary Police Services, on the impacts legalization is going to have on road safety. Broadly speaking, can you describe some of the concerns police have when it comes to legalization and impaired driving? So
our concern is plain number one, keeping the road safe. And when anytime we introduce something else into the system, like legalization of cannabis, we have to be very mindful of what are potential risks that are going to happen with it. The last thing we want to see is increase in crashes or fatalities come out of it. So what we're trying to do and try to predict is sort of where we're going to go with the entire trend of the entire country getting legalized. So we need to be mindful of the impact at the same time as preparing not only ourselves but the public. A lot of it has to do with public awareness. There does seem to be a difference between how alcohol seems to be fairly consistent in how it affects people, whereas cannabis differs and maybe it may be closer to a pharmaceutical drug and warnings. I mean, does the messaging have to change or be tweaked when it comes to educating the public about cannabis? I think it kind of does. I think the message has to be tweaked. We've been hitting home with people, don't drink and drive for 40 years beyond that type of idea. Now we're going to have to start that with drugs, and it's not just cannabis in general, it's just every drug. The public service announcement, the education, is that going to be, or should it be more targeted towards people who are going to use recreationally and have little to no experience with cannabis, and to like a younger demographic, 18 to 25-year-old males who I think, typically engage in riskier behavior to begin with? I think the message really has to have a broad stroke to it. It has to go to everybody. I don't think we can really just hit just one sort of demographic for it. It has to go to everybody, because when we look at it, part of my job when I'm doing a drug evaluation on someone to determine whether they're impaired, I'm not just looking for your illicit drugs. I'm looking for your prescription drugs as well. And with medicinal marijuana being a prescription drug, I still have to be able to hit on that, and I still have to take that into account. And what we are starting to see is more contacts of people that are driving with medicinal marijuana. We are seeing those contacts increase. We just never really heard about it before because it was sort of on the back burner. Just now, when I talk to members that are on the frontline streets and patrols, we understand that we're seeing that increase of that contact, or it's just more awareness of it, that it is out there, that the medicinal side is out there.
Here's a clip from veteran Mike Parsons' interview.
Hello, it's Kate. I'm here with Mike Parsons. You might recognize Mike's name from a recent blog that we wrote. There was an audio attached to it, all about Veterans Affairs. Mike really educated us on Veterans Affairs, and now he's here to educate you a little bit. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. What did Dr. Mason prescribe? What were you here for?
I was here. I was diagnosed with PTSD back in 2004 from my service over in former Yugoslavia. I also had a hip injury, so I was looking for pain relief. I was on about 9 different medications for about 10 years at the time. It was a bumpy road of the changes that come with medication. Like, there was a lot of different types, everything from antidepressants, mood stabilizers, to things for pain relief, and it was quite the cocktail I had at one point, and I felt like I needed a change.
And your original doctor, had never felt comfortable prescribing cannabis?
I approached my doctor, who is actually a veteran himself. I wanted to do it the right way, and I did ask my doctor at first, but he didn't really have a lot of the answers, and
So you self-referred to NHS?
Yes, well, like I said, a friend dragged me along. There was 2 cancellations that day, so my friend actually asked if they could fit me in, and they were like very accommodating. Like I said, took all my information, walked me through all the paperwork, and that's the big thing. Like veterans, especially dealing with Veterans Affairs Canada, there's a lot of paperwork and stuff like that, and it can be stressful for us. And I didn't have to deal with that. I still don't have to deal with that here when I call or show up. It's incredible. Like
That's
no
fantastic.
stress.
Wow.
Here's a clip from our Tommy Chong interview.
And we are up here in Edmonton for the Hemp Fest Expo. And how cool is this? Joining us on the Cannabis Show is the legendary Tommy Chong. Tommy, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Now, thank you for joining us here at Natural Health Services up here at the Expo and such. Now, I want you to elaborate. Medicinal cannabis, you know, how far has it come in your lifetime?
It's weird. It was made illegal the year I was born.
Yeah.
And I'm 70, I'll be 79. And now it's legal.
Now it's almost gone like reverse. Like, do you know what it was like before you were born? Like, did you ever get stories of like, oh yeah, it wasn't a big deal back then, or?
No, not really. But I had you know, cannabis has always been around.
Yeah.
Even back then, it was used as a medicine.
And like for yourself, you know, I mean, many of us, you know, growing up, we were doing it recreational and such. When did you start to realize that cannabis was a lot more than just a recreational type of thing to do?
Right from the beginning.
Really, you just knew right away that this is
right
more
from
than
the beginning. Well, because you know, like I was into bodybuilding before I got into smoking, and so I wasn't really doing much alcohol that much, you know, a little bit, but not much. I was health conscious.
Yeah.
And then when I was afraid to smoke pot at first, but a guy gave me a Lenny Bruce record and a joint in Calgary.
Yeah,
it was in Calgary.
Cool.
And so I put the joint in my pocket. We lit up one of his joints, and you know, I had a friend getting me high, so I wasn't worried about it. But I didn't smoke that much. And then that joint he gave me lasted about 2 months, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
Because I was just take a few tokes, and so I knew right from the beginning that
what they were telling us was silly in a way.
Well, there was no they.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no one really knew what pot was in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
And so you could smoke it on the street if you got it.
Yeah.
The problem was that one joint, that was it.
yeah.